diplomacy out the door, which we have done by withdrawing from this agreement, you better buy more ammunition for the Secretary of Defense.
Welcome. You're watching this special broadcast on BloombergQuint. Now, in the last 24 hours, we've heard the Fortis board tell us that they've picked the Mohit Burman offer as the winning offer for Fortis Healthcare. This has been a battle that has been fought rather publicly over the last several weeks. And now I have one of the winners in the studio with me, Mohit Burman of the Burman family. Mohit, thank you very much for joining us on BloombergQuint. Let me start by asking you what sparked your interest in Fortis Healthcare, because so far you've had a passive investment in this business, right?
Well, firstly, the battle is not yet over.
Not yet over, yes, of course.
We just passed the first stage.
Yeah, sure.
But getting back to the Fortis story, we were investors in this company we've been investors in this company for the last 1 year.
Okay.
And healthcare has been somewhat of a sweet spot for us. Historically, as you know, our flagship is FMCG, but we've had a pharmaceutical business before, and we've had a lot of healthcare ventures. So it was something we were interested in. Mr. Munjal had done due diligence on this company last year, but with the Daiichi hangover on it, I think he decided not to go for it. So when the pledged shares of the erstwhile promoters went into the market and there was no promoter left, at that point was the time when we actually felt that it was a potential possibility of a combined offer.
So when it originally started a year ago, when you invested, this was just a passive, it was an investment, a portfolio investment, and nothing more than that.
It was a portfolio investment, which was a substantial investment for us, because we were taking up our stake as the whole story was unfolding. So as you know, today combined we own 3.5% of the company.
Correct. Is this just you and the Munjal family, or this is just you? 3.5%?
No, the 3.5% is combined. But,
okay, so how much, who owns how much?
Well, we haven't really, since the last few months, we haven't really bought, because since we've been
sure.
Yeah, but I think it's split to 2 and 1.5 or 2.5.
So you own 2, your family owns 2, and 1.5 is owned
something like that
by the Munjal family, approximately, if I was it.
Or 2.5 and 1.
Okay, and so he bought that 1% after you all decided that you all would try and make a bid for this together, or he bought that 1% of his own interest?
No, these were investments which were done before the two of us actually.
So how did you all come together to, at one point in time, suddenly go from a 2% and 1% portfolio investment, significant portfolio investments, but to saying, hey, look, let's actually put 2,000 crores to work?
Actually, I mean, obviously the families have known each other for a long time. So it was, and because Mr. Munjal had interest in healthcare and had been looking at this business before, I think it just happened that when we decided we wanted to make a bid for it, it was a conversation which Dr. Burman, my cousin, had with Mr. Munjal, who know each other very well.
And then you decided that we're going to put 2,000 crores to work? Because that's roughly the size of the liquidity or the infusion that you're going to put in, right?
Absolutely. I think the end game is going to be more than 2,000, but we are focused on this now, and the number is irrelevant.
Okay. You have gone up against two very large, several bidders, but of those, if I were to just narrow it down to the most serious, the most binding, and the really big players, two very large hospital chains, right? You've got Manipal in India, and then you've got IHH, which is an Asian hospital chain. What, according to you, makes your offer better than theirs? Because from a price point of view, you are not necessarily the winner, the price per share. So what do you think are the winning attributes of your offer? Because the board was very succinct in describing it to us. All they said, Mr. Tempest, the director on the board of Fortis Healthcare, this morning when he was asked, why did you pick this offer? He said, well, on grounds of liquidity and certainty and risk parameters, we thought this was the best.
Those are good grounds, because if you look at the offers, ours is the only binding offer which is ready to infuse money into the business straight away after shareholder approval. I mean, it's transparent, it's clean, and requires no due diligence, no agreements, and doesn't disrupt the structure of the business. In terms, so therefore it's the most easy to execute, and I think that was one of the reasons. That was the few of the reasons that went for us.
Let me break it down then on each one of these grounds, right? Liquidity. You have committed roughly 1,800 crores?
1,800 crores, 1,050 crores straight up as after shareholder approval, and the rest in a warrant structure, which we're committed as and when the company needs money, but committed to to give it within 4 months.
Okay. How did you determine 1,800 crores was the right amount of liquidity that this company needed at this point in time?
No, I mean, you don't, I mean, as I said, we haven't done due diligence, so we don't know the exact number, but those were, we felt that...
So how did you arrive at 1,800?
No,
there must be some math that you put together,
yes, I mean,
however rough it was. Could you take us through that?
Yeah, our investment bankers and us, we put those numbers together in what we felt that the business would need over the next, to put it back into shape over the next 18 months or 2 years.
And you're open to the idea of putting more money in?
Yes.
Okay. You also don't intend to change current management or board structure. Have I understood that correctly?
No, because at this point of time, we don't have enough insight into the business to be making decisions like that.
Yeah, so I'm curious, if I understand it correctly, Manipal and IHH both wanted to take over the business, right? You don't want to take over the business.
No,
you just want to put money to work in the business.
No, not necessarily.
A business that you won't have necessarily, you might be the single largest shareholder, but you will not have, in company law parlance, that overwhelming majority, so to speak. So what is this offer about? No, because you're not buying out the company.
No, I think overall, we will be, as soon as we get an entry into the company, we will be looking at it on a much larger scale. And as I said, we are willing and we are committed to put more money at work, and if need be, they take our stakeholding up, yes.
But as this offer stands right now, at this liquidity infusion that you've spoken of, the 1,800 in total, your stake would be somewhere short of 20%,
exactly.
Correct?
Close to 20%.
Close to 20%. That's a fifth of the company. That is not an overwhelming majority. No. You don't even have the shares enough to block a vote that comes to shareholders. You're putting 1,800 crores to work for a 20% stake. Why not go whole hog and say, hey, this is a great business, we want to be in this business, and therefore we want to acquire the full company, lock, stock and barrel.
As I said, as soon as we get an insight into the business, I mean, that could be the case.
That you may choose to then exceed or increase your shareholding beyond that.
Exactly.
How long would it take for you to make that decision?
That's a difficult question to answer, because, as I said, I mean, at the moment we've only asked for 3 independent board seats, and we've presented a short and a long-term view to the executive committee and to the board. Last 3 days we were doing presentations. Okay. So therefore we have a short-term and a long-term plan.
What is in that long-term, short-term plan? Could you talk us through?
Yeah, the short-term plan is to use this money to make sure that the business is back onto shape over the next 2 or 3 months.
So what specifically will you be fixing with it?
I mean, we have to. I mean, there are creditors knocking at the door. Doctors are leaving. So all that, the machines need upgrades. The hospitals need money for upgrading. So all that money we're promising in the beginning will go use for that. Okay. And then for the mid-term plan, we have to look at SRL, we have to look at RHT. All those things have been addressed in our offer. Okay.
In your offer, you said that you will consider selling SRL, right?
That's an option.
I understand that you all have already started looking at buyers for SRL. No. Have people already started approaching you for SRL?
No, absolutely not. We gave 2 options to the board and to the executive committee. As I said, we're still looking at this from outside in. So
I understand.
Yeah. So unless we don't get clarifications on specific areas of the business, it's difficult for us to make informed decisions.
Mohit, I'm not a lawyer or a banker asking you to commit your plan to me. I'm just trying to get a better insight into what plan you have for the company. So therefore, the short-term and the long-term plan, and what your plans are. I understand some of this may change as you get a chance to look at the company more closely. I get that.
So specifically on SRL, we looked at 2 options. One is the sale of SRL, because there was already a demerger process which was happening. Right. So if we go along with whatever was already done, if we were to demerge that business and sell it, that money would go to buy the RHT assets.
Right.
And in case we believe that SRL has a very good future, and we believe that we can add value to this business, we have also given a plan where we will put in money with a rights issue, as well as more from our end to fund the buyout of the RHT assets.
Okay, so you'll take the final call on SRL once you've got your, not just your toes wet, but your knees wet, so to speak.
Yes.
And then, if required, you might actually hold on to SRL and not sell it. And in that case, you will put in additional capital to be able to execute the buyback of shares from RHT.
And a lot of the feedback we are getting from shareholders are saying they want to participate in the revival and the growth of this company. So therefore, we've also said that there will be a possibility of a rights issues where all shareholders can participate.
Okay, a rights issue was also part of what the Manipal plan was at one point in time, right? So I'm still a little curious. Explain to me why you didn't do this as an all-in buyout, if I may call it that, a bit like how Manipal had planned it.
No, Manipal had planned something totally different. They weren't buying into the business. They wanted
to buy the business.
The hospitals. No,
yeah, just the hospitals. Okay, yeah, fair enough. They wanted just the hospitals.
And to do a demerger of that thing could take 6 to 12 months. I mean, what happens to the business meanwhile?
Okay.
So therefore, our basic focus was to make sure that the business gets enough funds to survive, as well as gives us enough insight to be able to gauge our commitment, which obviously there is to that extent, to see if we want to take it to the next level.
Okay, you all have never run hospitals. I understand that you have some exposure to the pharmaceuticals business, a very serious one at that.
No, Mr. Munjal runs one of the. No,
this is the chain of hospitals, the country's largest chain of hospitals.
He runs a very successful, prestigious.
Of course.
Not only
but it's one
1,500-bed hospital, but also is voted the second teaching hospital.
I understand
turns
that.
out, yes.
I understand that.
And we've been in the healthcare sector for a very long time.
Sure, but pharmaceuticals is not equal to hospital.
No,
hospital management, as you would admit, is a whole different ball game. And so again, you've decided to keep the management the same way. I have a couple of questions around that, but you did not think that it might be better as shareholders, okay, just pure shareholders of this company, to see an experienced hospital chain take over the company? Because in its revised bid, Manipal dropped the demerger bid.
No, but there wasn't.
In the IHH bid, there was no demerger bid. So
no, but by then we'd already put our feet into the.
Sure, you could have withdrawn. I mean, at the end of the day.
No, but at that point of time, when we saw that the assets of the business was being demerged and the shareholder wasn't getting its due thing, then we felt that it was an opportunity for us.
There were revisions to all of these offers,
so we also,
right?
but by then we were committed and we were going to go the whole haul.
Yes, but it's 2,000 crores and more counting. I mean, at the rate at which you're telling me you're going to put in money, it looks like you might very well exceed a 3,000 crore, 4,000 crore outlay on this business, right? Starting from 3.5% to 20%, and maybe even then, a 25, 26%.
So therefore, if we weren't willing to commit, then we would have withdrawn. But we were willing to go all the way. So
you didn't think the future of this asset, which is Fortis Healthcare, was better placed in the hands of an experienced hospital chain rather than you all?
No, there was no experienced hospital chain coming in.
There is Manipal and IHH.
No, IHH run hospitals in Malaysia. They don't have any Indian experience.
Okay.
I mean, we've been operating businesses in India for over 100 years. May not be hospitals, but other businesses. IHH is operating hospitals in Malaysia. I mean, how can you say that they have better expertise in running these businesses in India?
They have experience in running hospitals. I'm not saying they're necessarily better placed. I'm asking you as shareholders of this business.
So these are not hospitals which are headless. I mean, they've been running for the last maybe so many years. So systems are in place, people are in place. Where's the need to have a hospital chain out of China or Malaysia come and run it?
Look, of course you think your bid is a better one. My job to ask questions. I know, I understand that. But I'm just curious, because let's assume, one was to look at this from the point of view of a minority shareholder of Fortis Healthcare, right? He's got this puzzling bevy of offers to try and pick and choose from. And amongst them, the three most serious, or the four most serious that the board considered are these. There are two hospital chains, one experienced in Asia, one experienced in India. There is this family couple that's come together that doesn't necessarily have the experience in running a hospital chain, but lots of other business experience, and so they have to pick and choose amongst all of these.
So that's so now that our offer is being recommended by the board, it will be our job to convince the shareholders to make sure they go with us.
This is one platform, so therefore I'm cross-questioning you on that,
absolutely,
right?
Absolutely.
So at the end of the day, the shareholder is going to weigh all of this. If I want to stay invested in this company as a shareholder, is it better for me to have this company in the hands of an IHH or a Manipal, someone who is experienced in running this, or a Munjal Burman combined, which has lots of other experience, but maybe has never run a hospital chain?
No, has not a chain, but has run hospitals.
One hospital.
One
very different
hospital.
From a chain.
No. But we know how to identify the right people to be running it. That's what we do in all our other businesses. We don't go and run it ourselves.
Okay, in your long plan, what else have you put in that would give the shareholder confidence that these are the right hands in which this business belongs?
No, in our long-term plan, which we will present to the shareholders, will address all the...
Can you give me an idea of what you already put to the board?
RHT, the buying out of RHT, which will save a lot of money, which is going out to pay for the rentals. That has been addressed. SRL, both options have been addressed.
Okay.
Everything has been addressed to the board and to the committees, and which we will start presenting to the shareholders in due course.
Okay. Any more details that you can give us in terms of what your strategic plan may be for this business? Or because you're going to have to present that to shareholders as well, right?
No, strategic plan will only be able to come in. We have to address all the issues that are in front of us today, and long-term strategic plans will only be able to come once we have an insight into the business.
Okay. You envisage that with the additional capital you put in, beyond the 1,800 that you've spoken of, that you might be at a point above 25, 26%. Do you believe that that might, in fact, then lead to a situation where there could be an open offer for other shareholders?
Well, if we decide to come to that situation, yes, then we'll have to.
If you exceed 25%, then you will have to do that, right?
So we'll have to go with the law.
Do you expect to exceed 25%?
No, that's.
Have you factored that into your plan at all?
We factored into our plans in terms of money commitment, but as I said, we will abide by the.
You mentioned that you might consider a rights issue. Now, in a rights issue, everything increases proportionately unless you choose to subscribe to those unsubscribed shares by other shareholders. So I'm just curious to know, your plan 1 is to go from 3.5% to about 19-odd%.
Exactly.
Your plan 2 is to go from 19-odd% to 25 and more. Is that how I would understand it?
I mean, we haven't committed on that plan because we have to see what the shareholders, what the reaction of the shareholders are. Some of them may not want to stay in, some of them may want to stay in. It's only after we discuss all this with the shareholders, the plan 2, which you said, will come into force.
Okay, let me rephrase it this way then. Would you be how do I put it? Would you be interested in taking your stake to above 25%? Is that something that you would actually, in fact, like to do if there are shareholders willing to sell to you?
This will have to be a discussion between the two partners.
But I'm sure you've considered it. There's no way your investment bankers did not consider the possibility of an open offer to minority.
Yeah, we've considered it, but we can only after we start discussing all this with the shareholders will be able to decide on what the next path is going to be.
Mohit, are you open to the idea of being in a position where you own, the combined owns more than 25%? Is that something that you've reckoned with in your plans?
We've thought about it, yes.
And it's a possibility?
Could be.
Okay, fine. You don't want to change management at all at this point in time?
No, because we haven't had an opportunity to, have interactions with them, except obviously with the top 1 or 2 who've been in the meetings, which we've all been to.
Okay, so here's how it works. The board has now recommended your offer. Shareholders will vote on it. There will be a 30-day notice period because that's what the law requires. Whenever the shareholders get to vote on it, we'll know how they feel. But there are a couple of governance issues that I want to put to you. This company in the last 2 years has not only seen the Singh brothers' promotership decline now to nothing, but it has also seen several suspicious transactions take place. Have you all looked at any of that in advance right now? Do you have a view on any of those? Have you considered that what the size of that black hole might be?
Yeah. See, as you know, there have been other companies doing due diligence on this for a long time. Okay, and I think most of the so-called black holes is probably a lot into the public domain. So we are assuming that what is already in the public domain is what it is. You're 100% right. Once we go into the business, there might be a little bit more, but it's difficult for me to comment on that unless we don't get to look at the books.
So what is the worst-case scenario estimate you put together on these suspicious transactions?
I think the worst-case scenario is probably probably out there for everyone.
How much? 500 crores, 1,000 crores, 1,500 crores?
I really can't put in a number, but
you would have done that. There's no way you're putting 1,800 crores to work without having estimated all of this.
I wouldn't. I mean, it's difficult to say. There's 1 or 2 transactions which are being reversed in the sense some money was coming back and some money has come back. It's difficult to say that. I would say it's about around the numbers which you just said.
Okay. Right now, it's just a no, I said 3 different numbers: 500, 1,000, and 1,500. So that's a large range.
Yeah, probably between the first 2.
500 and 1,000 is your worst case scenario estimate of what these potential losses could be because of suspicious transactions. Okay. You're going to put together some sort of acquisition vehicle, I understand. Now, these are, sort of technical things, but I'm still interested, so I'm going to ask you.
Absolutely.
So how will you do it? What is it going to be?
No, so at the moment, of course, all this is going to be talked about now because we've been just recommended yesterday. So, the funds are already marked. The funds are ready to go within the next 30 days. So, but the vehicle, whether you're asking whether we're going to put in one vehicle where we're going to do.
I would imagine, because right now it's just two families that have come together to do it. Yeah. You'll have to create some sort of SPV or company that is doing all of this.
Not necessarily. We may just invest through two different vehicles.
So then how will the resultant 19% shareholding be split up between the two families?
No, we're acting in concern, obviously in concert. So even if we do it through two companies, on what the exact shareholding will be, that's being discussed.
Because right now you are at 1 and 2.
Or 2.5 and 1 or something like that.
2.5 and 1.
Yeah, but that's
so you own double of what Mr. Munjal's family owns.
But that's a bit
Is that the proportion you will keep it in or something like that?
No, not necessarily, no. It's probably, it's too early to say, but it will probably be.
How are you raising these 1,800 crore rupees?
We're not raising it. It's cash sitting with us. Between both the parties.
You have spare cash of 1,800 crore rupees?
No, between both parties.
Between both parties, you have spare cash of 1,800 crores. You've not looked at any external financing for this at this point in time?
No, not for this initial commitment.
Initial isn't 1,000 crores or 1,800?
No, the 1,800.
You don't need any external financing for this. This is money lying with the two families.
Exactly.
Okay, I would imagine this is liquidity.
Why are you so surprised?
No, it's a large amount, and therefore I'm just saying to be able to free that up in 30 days.
Of course, I mean they're invested.
I'm not suggesting that you don't have access to the funds. I'm just curious to know.
For this 1,800, there's no external funding.
So you're not doing any leverage. You're not doing anything at all. It's all straight up cash that two families have that you will put to work immediately as soon as you get your approval.
And that's probably one of the factors that led us to recommended us for this offer.
Okay. Now, the one thing that your success depends on is the shareholder vote. But that's not the only thing that it depends on. And let me get to the other governance questions I have. The decision that has been made to pick you as the best offer has been made by a board in which 4 board directors are currently, currently have this cloud above their heads because a group of shareholders representing not an insignificant amount of, money or percentage have sought the removal of 4 directors on the current board of Fortis Healthcare. Now, if you heard carefully what Mr. Tempest said about the vote this morning, he said 3 directors who have been around for a long time, and these are 3 of the 4 that have been sought to be removed, voted in your favor. Of the remaining 5, 2 voted in your favor. So that the vote went 5-3 in favor of yours. But of those 5, I think at least 3 directors are amongst the 4 that are being sought to be removed from the board of Fortis. There's a very good chance that someone might raise this and say, therefore, what is the moral standing that they have to have been able to make this decision right now? Because this decision will impact the future of Fortis Healthcare for the years to come. Is that something you're going to run into?
I'm not one to pass judgment on people's moral standing. As far as we're concerned, we had to present our case to a board and a committee.
Correct.
And there were 3 more independents which were added to that board.
Right.
As far as we're concerned and as far as all the other bidders were concerned, we were told to present our case to them. Now we have to present our case to whoever somebody.
Yeah.
Now, as far as we did our best in terms of what we had to do. If these board members need to be changed or the shareholders thing, then if the new people come, then we'll present our case again. But as far as it's highly difficult for me to make a judgment on what's going to happen next month.
No, I understand that. But do you anticipate this being something that could become a problem for you here on? That someone challenges the right of this board to make the decision when 4 of 8 members are supposed to have a vote, on whether they should be allowed to be on the board or not on this 22nd of May.
No, see, as far as we're concerned, we presented our case, we've been recommended, so our focus is now to reach out to the shareholders. On what could or may or might not happen is not something we're keeping into account at the moment.
Okay, that was one question. The other thing is, I think there might be some doubts raised on the fact that the board has picked a bidder who has not sought to take over the company, who has not sought to change the current board, and who does not seek to change the management either. In a sense, the board has picked someone who maintains status quo. And people are going to raise questions because this is the same board that ran this company or governed this company during the time that all of these suspicious transactions took place. Somehow, it doesn't, when you put these pieces together, it doesn't add up to a very pretty picture.
No, but they've already raised questions. That's why there were 3 independents put from the shareholders who looked at our bid.
I don't know how many of them voted for you, though.
No, but nor do I.
We don't
but
know.
No, yeah, exactly. But it's already been done. So what is the? So all that has already been addressed. What you just said. That's why the 3 new shareholders are. That's why it went to an independent committee. That's why exactly your concerns have already been met.
So you believe that any concerns arising, from the current composition of the board, the fact that this was the same board that was running this company for the last 2 years when all of these suspicious transactions took place, the fact that this board has picked a bidder, that wants to maintain status quo, that doesn't want to change the board or the management, all of those concerns have been met by the, by the various external advice that has come
Absolutely. I mean, as I said, we are going in this from outside in with our eyes closed. We haven't done due diligence. I'm not committed. I haven't committed that we won't change, we won't do this. But how can I say I'm going to change the management before even knowing who they are? It's just not possible. So we haven't committed that it won't happen. But I mean, unless we don't get our feet in and see what the business needs. So at this point of time, how can I come and say to that I'm going to do this, I'm going to change this person and change that person? I don't know. Maybe it will happen. Maybe it won't.
Okay. Have you had, how do you feel about the current board of directors? Let me ask that question. Because, as a shareholder from a year ago, you watched in the last 1 year, the value of your shares declined considerably because of all these suspicious transactions, because of the way the company has been run. So how do you feel about this?
See, again, board? I'm not sitting here in judgment on individual board members. No, we saw an opportunity. We felt that it's an opportunity that we were willing to add value and take this business to the next level. Now, there is a board that existed, which we presented our case to. There was shareholders wanted more people to come on this board. They added 3 independent directors. These people decided that all the bidders have to go to an independent committee. All of them have gone through that. In
the committee also there was controversy. Renuka Ramnath withdrew, so there were only 2 members left.
Exactly.
So I mean, nothing has happened smoothly in this process.
So you're right, but your questions would be the same if someone else was bidding. You could say that what is the sanctity of these 4 men?
These are bidder agnostic questions. I'll give you that. All I'm asking is that you, as a shareholder, you witnessed the decline in the fortunes of this company over the last 1 year. The same board was in charge. Yeah. How do you feel about the board? It's a straightforward question. Whether you had the winning bid or not, how do you feel about the board?
Well, that's the only board I have to present my case to.
That's fine. That's for the bid. But how do you feel as a shareholder about this, sort of the legitimacy of this board, if I can put it that way, given the decline in fortunes, the suspicious transactions we've seen over the last 1 year?
That's the board that was there, and that's the board that is now. And if in future, if we are in a position, if some of them, if we need to add more independence, if some of them, need to be changed, that'll be a decision which will be made at that point of time.
You will have a chance or an opportunity to vote on your combined 3.5% on the May 22nd vote, right? Yeah. Will you be voting in favor of these directors or against them?
I haven't come to that conclusion as yet. I haven't thought about it as yet.
But that's critical, isn't it?
Yeah, it's critical. But if you ask me closer to the time, I'll be able to answer that question.
I'm not sure you ever will. Not until you cast your vote. But at this point, where you sit today, do you think that these are 4 directors you want to back or no?
See, it's not a question of whether backing.
Do you agree with those shareholders?
Can I just tell you, how can this is a public limited company, okay? You have 4 directors, for whatever said and done, have been there for some time. You've got 3 new directors. If shareholders remove these 4 directors, the accounts need to be signed. It's the year ending. Are you telling me that these 3 new directors are going to sign the accounts? And if the accounts aren't signed, in 6 months' time, the company will be delisted. So, I mean, it's difficult for me to say what's right or what happened was wrong or what's right. I have to look at the future of the company. And the future of the company doesn't require it to be a headless chicken. I mean, new shareholders can come in and, of course, question the legitimacy of this board and ask for the removal. If they remove, let's be let's discuss this. If they're removed, these 3 new people have come in. Are going to will they be able to sign these accounts? If I was a new board member, I wouldn't be able to do it. So what happens to the company? What's happened to the business?
Yeah. No, it's a very good point.
So I mean, it's easy to say that they've been there for a long time, and they should be removed. But so what? So who's going to be running the business?
So you're going to vote in their favor then?
No, I'm not saying. I'm
for
just
all
saying,
these very practical reasons, even if you don't agree with the way they ran it in the past.
Now that we are being recommended to shareholders, I have to look at the future of this company. I can't look at the past.
Sure.
What has happened is happened. I can't change that. We have to make sure that the business survives and goes to the next level.
Okay. When you said you want 3 seats on the board, are they 3 of 8, or are you looking at an expanded board, or how? 3 of what?
No, three additions. Yeah.
3 additions.
Yeah.
So it'll become 3 of 11.
Well, actually, we had asked for that before the other 3 independents had come in.
So 3 of 5 is what you had. No, 3 of 8 is what you had originally said. Now it's a board of 8.
Yeah. Now it's
so
a board
will you
of
be
8.
still 3 of 8?
Actually, that's a good question because
you know, 3 means something when it's 3 of 5, 3 of 4, 3 of 10. The influence changes dramatically.
But now that they're already there, so I mean, I don't think it would be prudent.
So originally you had planned 3 of 8.
Yes, but now it'll have to be 3 of 11.
So that's almost half the board.
Yeah.
So if we were to work by that proportion, you know, today you're talking about more than 3 if they continue to have a board size of 8 or more.
Yeah, see, my intention is to make sure that the money that goes in is overlooked by independent, you know, with board members, so that the money goes for the right places where it's supposed to go. So therefore, whether it's 3 out of 8 or 3 out of 11, it doesn't really matter. Okay,
just one quick legal question. I'm not sure I understand this very correctly, but will you then become the promoters of this company?
If you have what?
If you do go up to 19% and you have 3 seats on the board
I'm not
8.
sure. I'm not either legally.
Do you get tagged as promoter then? Because now there is no current promoter.
If you get tagged as promoter, then I presume there'll have to be an open offer.
Yeah.
I presume there have
because
to be,
then there is not a substantial acquisition, but a change in control.
So that'll happen.
So if you have half the board, if you have 3 of 8, that's just 1 short of half the board, right? If you have half the board, that is control. No,
but we don't have half the board.
And if you have 3 of 8, if you win, if shareholders vote for you, if there is no other competition from anybody else, and if effectively at the end of all of this, you are able to put 3 of your people on the board and the board size stays 8, however the composition changes.
I take that back because our initial proposal was for 2 board members.
And then it's now 3.
Yeah, it's more 3 because we'd up the offer.
That's why I asked 3 of how much, which is why I wanted to know. Because there are 2 ways that this works, right? One is either substantial acquisition, you buy 25%, you have or more, you have to do an open offer to existing shareholders, or if there is a change in control. A change in control will be perceived if you have half the board.
We don't have half the board, 3 of 8.
So 3 of 8 is just 1 short of half the board.
It's just 1 short, but it's 1 short.
Okay, cool. You do expect, I'm sure your bankers have said this to you, that if the other 2-3 bidders are serious, that they will probably now go straight to shareholders with voluntary open offers. Is that something that you're prepared for? Because then it does become a bidding war.
You know, I mean, I think. See, if you look at the history, TPG, Manipal, as well as IHH have had access to all of this and have done substantial due diligence. I mean, if I presume that they've looked at this business for a long time and they've made offers for the prices they have, which has been happening over the last 2 months with substantial revisions, that this is the amount of money that the business is worth. Now, if it becomes an ego decision and people start offering or making open offers for prices way above, then we'll have to look at it again. But we will not be driven by that.
So correct me if I'm wrong. At the current, at least the first 1,000 crores that you're offering to put in is at about 167 rupees a share. Our
combined price comes to 172.
Which is just 3 rupees short of IHH's 175 and substantially higher than Manipal.
But theirs is non-binding IHH.
Of course, I know. It's not all apples to apples. I get that. I know. I understand that. Which is why I didn't get into the numbers too specifically. But, I was just curious. So you're paying 172 at this point in time, right? IHH is 3 rupees higher than you, but Manipal is much, much lower than you. Are you prepared to participate in a bidding war? Would you be even interested in that?
No, it wouldn't be. I mean, it would be driven by rationale, not by ego.
Okay, all right. I think that brings all my questions to an end.
Well,
like you said,
many more questions than I expected, but thank you.
No, well, like I said, this is, you've gotten past the board decision, and now we'll wait to see what the shareholders say, and whether this situation takes another more interesting, wild turn in the weeks to come. Thank you, Mohit Burman, for being very candid in your responses.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you.